Speak softly. Carry a big antenna. So I need to do some work on my VHF tower. One, I want to raise it. I use these fiberglass military masts. I want to see if I can get it up a little bit higher because my neighborhood's kind of hilly, and some of the repeaters south, like where the top of my antenna is probably like ground height if you drive south out of my neighborhood, or out of my street rather. But I also want to put up this Comet GP3 antenna to replace the Browning that I had. Comet was kind enough to give this to me at the Dayton Ham Fest. And this is 4.5 dBi of gain on 2 meters and 7.2 dBi of gain on 70 centimeters. So hopefully I'll be able to get out a little bit further, so that will be nice. But I also need to replace my weather station. I have this exact same one up right now, but the little weather vane, wind vane thing here, I somehow broke it, I don't know, but I don't think the photovoltaic sensor works on it either, so I'm gonna go ahead and replace that. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna replace the Coax. I'm using currently Messi and Poloni Hyperflex 10 Sahara, and I'm gonna replace it with this Messi and Poloni Hyperflex 10. The only difference is this has a black jacket. The Sahara has a white jacket for hot environments like Texas. But I cut that Coax specifically for the length that it is now. Plus there's an end connector on that antenna. So I figured I might as well just swap out the Coax. This is way too much, but I'll have to feed it through the wall and just cut it to length when I get up on the roof. So let's get to doing some antenna maintenance. This is part of ham radio, part of the fun. And it all starts with removing this connector and cutting it off. And I'll cut the connector off the old Coax. Brilliant. When does anything roll where you actually need it? Now I can pull out the old Coax. Hopefully stick in the new stuff. I just drilled a hole in the mortar of the bricks here. That may have gone through. Might be hitting the desk inside. Let's find out. Nope, still not in yet. Sometimes it's hard sticking it in the hole. They come out so easy. There we go. There she goes. So I'm just gonna pull a lot of this in the house for now. And once I get it attached to the antenna, then we'll cut off the excess, enough to get to the workbench to solder on a new end and connect it to the radio. We put these little clips under the eaves of the house to hold the Coax. I need to take that out. We'll put the new stuff back in there, but for now, that takes care of that. And now I can take the old mast down, starting by maybe, should have brought some pliers up here. Now we can take the old antenna out. And because I didn't bring a wrench up here, I think I'm just gonna lower this down by the Coax because this connector is stuck. So now we get to replace everything. Got the old weather station here. This should just swap out with just this one screw because it's the same model. So I can just take this off and put the new one on. Theoretically. just like that. Put the new one on. The screw fits, and there's just this little bolt that goes on. I'm trying to do this all before it rains too. Perfect timing to make a antenna maintenance video. All right, that should be good. See, this is what was broken on the old one, and this sensor that's supposed to sense like how much sun is coming in for like solar stuff. I'm gonna take the batteries out of this one. Hey look, pale blue batteries. And this will go in the trash. Now we need to tackle this antenna. That connector is really on there, so I'm just gonna take off the whole darn thing. Good enough. Deal with this later. We'll put on the new antenna mount. It's nice that everything on this is like 10 millimeter. Makes it easy. All right, that feels good on the hole. Now you've got this tube and this other bracket. The tube just slides in these guys, and this hole is what's going to connect to the base of the antenna there so it doesn't go flying in a hurricane. All right, now that's good. Now we can tighten this down. That's good. There we are. Now we take our coax, we stick it through this tube and attach it to our SO239 that is on this antenna. And we got some hardware. This antenna has 3 radials. And it looks like they also sent some self-amalgamating tape. So that's nice. And some nuts and bolts, presumably for locking in these holes, at least that hole on the mount. So let's try our hand at this self-amalgamating tape. I am absolutely terrible at this kind of stuff. But I've seen Callum do it, so it can't be that hard, right? You just stretch it and it kind of sticks to itself, like it's doing to me now. Something like that. Sure. And then the pros will cover it with a layer of electrical tape that I'm equally bad at doing. I don't know if I should go the other way. See how bad this is? And then that whole assembly slides back in, and we can see there's the hole where we're going to use these nuts and bolts. And actually it's just this nut and this washer, because those bolts are for the radials. That there. And these nuts go on the radials, and that's what will actually like tighten them down to the antenna itself. So the radials screw in. Of course, that's not a 10 millimeter. And then you use a wrench or something to tighten the nuts onto the base. So now those they can't back out essentially, because they've got pressure on them from the nut. And that's how you do that. We're ready to put it back up on the roof. Speak softly, carry a big antenna. I have the power. So now I've got the 2 sections of mast with the weather station and antenna on. My antenna is actually hitting the weather station, so I need to drop this down. So I'm gonna do that. There. Now it's not gonna interfere with the weather vane. And now the scary part, I'm gonna put this extra mast in here. And we'll put it back over our mast. Just like that. I'm gonna put a couple turns on the mast so I can wrap the coax around it a little bit. And now we can pull the rest of the coax in, put the connector on, and we should be good to go. Isn't it beautiful? Well, I fixed the other antennas, now I need to fix this one. I'm actually gonna wrap this with some electrical tape. These masts tend to want to turn a little bit if it's really, really windy. So I just put a bit of electrical tape on it to prevent that from happening. Seems to work fairly well. Perfect. And just in the nick of time because it's starting to rain. And now I get to pull all the coax through the wall. Ugh, that's gotta be most of it. Oh yeah. We've got tension on the little strain relief clip that I did put on before I came in because it was raining. So now I've just pulled this run that's going through the wall, and I've got enough to come to my workbench so I can just cut off like right here, roll up that stuff. So that way I'll have enough room to put the connector on, and I can pull the rest outside just to have for just a little bit of extra wire out there, I guess. Now I'm gonna go put on a dry shirt because I got all rained on. Now I can put on my new coax connector. This is an Evo connector from Messi and Poloni. These are kind of a compression type connector. Fantastic. They don't all work, the Messi and Poloni connectors, with different brands of cable, but this one would work for any of your like 400 size cables. So we're gonna put that guy on first, then a little washer, and then this rubber grommet seal type thing. Like that. Then I'm gonna strip off about 1 centimeter of the jacket. You don't have to be too careful about cutting the braid because, well, you'll see in a minute. Jacket's off. Here's the neatest trick you'll learn about separating a coax braid that I learned when I was in Italy at Messi and Poloni. Get a toothbrush. Look at that. And yeah, a lot of these are broken, doesn't matter. So we pull that down, then we're gonna take this little insert thing. I like to use these scissors just to open it up a little bit, and then we slide it over the foil and the dielectric, like such. We kind of pinch it closed, and that slides underneath the braid. And then all this extra stuff, I'm just gonna fan out, and we're gonna cut off. That should be good enough. Then we can cut down to the center conductor. Just using a razor blade here, cut through the foil, cut through the dielectric. Don't cut through the center conductor. And there we are, there's the dielectric off. Then we have this little insulator guy. That's gonna go over the center conductor. Now I have too much center conductor here because basically it's gonna stick inside this pin. So I need to cut off a little bit, but that's fine. It's always better to cut than to have to need more. And I'm gonna throw the coax in a vise, makes it a lot easier. Got some rubber on here to protect it. And this little white thing actually comes off the center conductor. So I'm gonna take that off temporarily. Make sure we got a good fit here. And we do. But before I solder it, I wanna take a little bit of flux and just put a drop or two inside the connector there. the center pin before we put it on. That's going to help the solder flow easily. And there's a little tiny hole on the connector there. That's where we're going to add our solder. And when it gets warm enough, it's just going to pull all that in. Just like that. Give it a little pull, make sure it's on, and it is. Now our center pin has cooled for a minute. We can put this little white guy back on. Then we can push up all of the stuff we put on first. And we simply insert all of this into the connector and screw it down. And that's it. That is done. And now all I gotta do is force the extra coax back out the wall and plug it into the radio. Oof. And commence operation, plugging it into the right hole in my watt meter without breaking my thing here, hotspot. And there we are. Probably because I plugged it in the wrong hole, you big dummy. Now let's try that. That's better. So 1.28, putting out 45 watts, a little less than a half a watt reflected. That is okay with me. Let's go down to 145 megahertz. Even better. Here's 147.5 megahertz. Yeah, this thing's great. And here's 446 at high power, 37 watts, 1.35 to 1 SWR. You can't really complain with that. And now look at this. I'm getting a better signal. This repeater is actually not very far from me at all. I think it's about 11 or 12 miles south of me. But on the old antenna and the old setup, I would only get like 3 or 4 bars tops. I would never see that strong of a signal. So this is awesome. And then oddly enough, this repeater is a linked repeater to the same one we just looked at that's twice the distance, and now I have the same signal. So this is great. Look at that. I've never gotten that high. It's probably blowing around in the wind right now, but I have never gotten that strong of a signal from this repeater where I'm at. And my weather station is working again. I just had to unplug that and plug it back in. This is the part that wasn't working, the UV index and the sunlight from that little sensor we looked at on top there. Now everything's working again. So that is a great success. So there we are. A new antenna and new coax for my new radio and a new weather station for my old weather station. So great, everything works. That actually didn't take that long either, so it would have taken even less if I wasn't filming, but I'm glad you came along with me. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Ham Radio Tube 73.